Alright guys, it's time to talk about Diana. I don't have a good nickname for her, but she got a rework recently and now she's like absolutely busted and has pretty much been all of season 10. I've been getting a couple of comments recently on my Ticket to Diamond videos that have been saying, oh Snowda, you're just making them on all the champions. And yes, that's the point of what I'm doing. The reality of solo queue is that it is just so random. There's so many team comps, so much weird communication. The skill of players in every different rank is all over the place. So there's not really a coherent way to climb, and you have the ability to climb with literally any champion in the game. Now maybe you might not get to Challenger, right? But I think it's a decent goal for every single player to want to make it to Diamond with whatever their favorite champion is in the game. So my job is just to help collect information for you, give you tips and tricks, give you ways to carry so that when you go into your games, you have a higher chance of carrying and winning so that you can make it to your desired rank. Diana is a very unique champion because she's very simple to play whenever you're within a certain range of your opponent, and has also been rated one of the best mid laners to carry in solo queue by Mobalytics.
Champion that we both probably want to recommend the most is Diana.
Yeah.
Very simple, great team
That's
fighter.
the number one. Laning, she can team fight, she can 1v1, she can split push.
Recently, she got a rework that basically just changed her W and her R ability. They basically just swapped. And instead of being this kind of dashy burst mage, she kind of just turned into a nuke that jumps into the enemy team. A lot of her mechanics are still the same, but her kill pressure pre-6 has now increased, and her burst and ability to kind of wipe out the entire team in a team fight has also gone up as well. Because of these simple changes, Diana's spot in the tier list for mid lane assassins and just mid laners to climb in general has skyrocketed. She's now one of the best mid laners to carry in solo queue. I wanted to take a different approach in this video. Kind of in my last ones, I've been talking about the things I like and don't like about a champion, tips to carry, ways to counter. I've never really been going in depth about runes or build or different combos and stuff, but I kind of want to do that this game because I have a little bit more knowledge about Diana, and I've been having a ton of success with her recently on my unranked to diamond account, which you guys will see soon, so stay tuned for that. Okay, to start off, we're gonna go over Diana's runes and her build. Okay, for summoner spells, it's super simple. You're just gonna take flash and teleport. I know a lot of you might be tempted to take ignite, and you totally can in some situations, in some matchups. It also just increases your kill pressure pre-6, but I personally like teleport because it increases your overall map pressure throughout the game and allows her to influence the map with her strong skirmish and team fighting power. For runes, Conqueror is usually recommended and is by far the most common on op.gg, u.gg, and just like what all the pros have been taking. In some rare cases, you might take Phase Rush. The movement speed buff was recently increased for melee champions, but when I was doing research on pro players and what they like to take, only 5% of the time did someone go Phase Rush. All 95% of the other games went Conqueror. The couple of times where I did see that they took Phase Rush, they were against low damage utility mages like Zillion and Twisted Fate. So just keep that in mind. I think just for keeping it simple, we'll just go Conqueror every single game. But other than that, the runes are literally all over the place and they can change. So I'm showing you 3 different rune pages for 3 different matchups I saw pros go into. So the first one is Keen. When he was playing against Zoe, he went Conqueror into Triumph for the first part of the tree, and then he went into Alacrity and Last Stand. Now this is really interesting because I think you want to take coup de grace on Diana usually. Maybe the comp that Keen was against really kind of just tipped him off to go Last Stand. He knew that he was going to be taking a lot of poke damage whenever they had to engage. And for the secondary tree, he went Resolve, which is kind of interesting because a lot of websites recommend Domination. But it just overall adds to her tankiness because Diana is a very tanky champion pretty much all throughout the game. And he went Shield Bash and Second Wind. And for his 3 rune buffs, he took Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Magic Resist. Pretty standard. It's a little bit interesting that he went Attack Speed when he already took Alacrity in the first Precision tree. Usually I would have just done double Adaptive Force, but we'll just see what the other 3 rune pages are. Okay, so the second one that we have is Faker. He took Conqueror, Triumph, Tenacity, and Coup de Grace. I like this one a lot. I think that this is probably what I would take, but if you're against a team comp that doesn't have a ton of crowd control that you really have to be worried about, I would just go Attack Speed just because it synchronizes with Diana's playstyle so well. Forgot to mention that in this matchup, Faker is playing against LeBlanc, and then for his secondary, his inspiration tree, he went Biscuit Delivery and Time Warp Tonic. So I think he was preparing to get bullied a lot in this lane, and he went double Adaptive Force and Magic Resist. I think he just knew that he was gonna have to burst LeBlanc and wouldn't have a ton of time to just auto attack her. So far we really don't have any consistency with what the pros are picking, and to make it even worse, we're gonna go to Nemesis, who is Fnatic's mid laner, and see what he picked versus Syndra. So he went Conqueror, and then what's really interesting is he went Presence of Mind. Now, I actually kind of agree with this and have been wanting to try it out in my own games because Diana does have some mana issues early in the game. When you're popping full combos, when you're trading and whatnot in the river, or if you're going for an all-in a couple times in mid lane, you are going to run out of mana and it's super tilting, especially when you're trying to push the wave and back. Having Presence of Mind can help with this, but it's only after takedown, so it's not really like a fix for early in the game. And then he went Tenacity, which I like, and then Last Stand, which I'm also curious about. And then to make it even more frustrating, he went Resolve, Secondary Tree with Conditioning, Overgrowth, and then he went Attack Speed, which I agree with because he went Tenacity in his first tree, Adaptive Force, and Magic Resist. Pretty standard there. So basically, guys, the moral of the story, and if I were to give you the ideal rune page, if you're just like, you want to save it, you don't want to mess with your runes before every game, this is what it's going to be. I'll throw it up on the screen right now. It's Conqueror, Triumph, Alacrity, or Tenacity. I think those two, you just have to look at the matchup. You have to see what's going on in the game, and then you can go to coup de grace, the last one. To keep it simple, we're just going to go Domination with the 2 healing runes in the secondary tree, and then we're going to go Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and then the last one we're going to go Magic Resist or Armor, depending on our lane matchup. Also, I wanted to throw in a quick tidbit. I would go Attack Speed if you're running Tenacity. Otherwise, if you're running Alacrity in the first Precision tree, you can just go a second Adaptive Force. It'll just give you a little bit more damage. Great. For the items on Diana, this was also equally confusing. The pros wanted to go a different thing. What I found was that in 75 to 80% of the games, they either started Hextech Protobelt or Rod of Ages. I'll throw it up on the screen, the most popular items that people build for Diana, and Rod of Ages was only 15%. Granted, 20% of these were for jungle Diana, which we're only talking about mid lane Diana right now. I think she's just way stronger mid lane. But what I've personally been going is Hextech Protobelt into Nashor's Tooth.
What's up, guys? It's Editor Snowda here, and I realized after I'm editing this video that the reason why pros rarely take Rod of Ages is because the average challenger game only lasts like 26 minutes, so they need that early power spike from getting an early Nashor's Tooth or getting an early Protobelt. So if you are in lower than probably Platinum, I think Roa is actually probably the better build to go, so I would just go Roa into Nashor's Tooth. And then after those 2 items, you can go like Zanya's, Rabadon's, Leandry's, Void Staff, kind of just depending on the enemy team comp, but just remember to adapt.
All right, guys, we're hopping into practice tool right now. We're going to go over a couple of Diana's combos, and just to get right into it, the thing that makes Diana's kit work is this moonlight on hit thing, right? This little moonlight thing that you see shooting into the sky indicates what you can and cannot jump to and reset. So for example, if I just W'd here, my E goes on cooldown for around 7 seconds. It's higher earlier in the game. I'm just level 18 right now. And so if you use your E, you can't really do anything else. Like, you're stuck just running melee mode, right? So in order to get like more resets in team fights and basically be able to stick to your opponent more easily, you're gonna need to be able to hit your Q to reset this. So the basic combo for Diana is just to hit your Q into your E, right? That's literally all it is. Now, what you can do is you can throw your W in there for a little bit more burst damage. You'll get a shield, you proc it all when you hit, and then you just do a ton of damage, right? So this is the bread and butter combo for Diana. It's your Q into EW. Now, something you could do in lane if you're trying to trade is if you hit a minion and you miss your enemy laner, you could WE to that minion, and then you can just start auto attacking them. And then when your Q is back up, you can go reset it on them as well, right? So just regardless, whenever you're in range about this, around this far from somebody, you can even back up. This is Diana's range. This is when they need to respect you and your burst. That's a pretty long distance for being a melee champion. So if you can hit this, go in, it does a ton of damage, especially when you start hitting auto attacks. If it's in multiple people, you can pop your ulti. All right, boys, moving on to the second combo is we're just going to add to it a little bit more, and this is great for trading in lane or going for an all-in. So what you're going to want to do is stack 2 auto attacks on a minion or an enemy champion or whatever, and then EWQ look you just talked about, and then you land your empowered auto attack. It does a ton of damage, and it can be a great way to chunk your opponent and even just all in them way faster than thought you'd be able to. So we'll do it one more time. We'll attack twice, Q, EW, auto attack, right? And you just do a ton of damage. This is a great way to just increase your burst and utilize your passive as well as all of your abilities. All right, we're gonna do the same thing with the auto attacks and our QEW, but this time we're gonna add our ultimate and just kind of just show you the full damage potential that Diana has. Cool, I did it after the auto attack. You can do it a little bit before if you want to. Kind of pull them into your auto attack. Cool, so our next combo is a little bit more complicated, but this can be absolutely insane if you want to do a high amount of damage to like an ADC or just delete a squishy from the map. Cool, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do our same combo. Okay, so did you guys see what I did there? So what you're gonna do is basically the same thing. It's when you ulti, it does more damage, right? 1661, 1068. So your ultimate does more damage based on how many people you knock in. So if you knock in 2 or 3 people right here, there's 1469. So what you can do is soak all this and then flash in and get that person the damage. So if there's a Vayne that is by far like just carrying the enemy team, you can just do this. You can ulti and then it'll hit them on the way there too. This is a great way to create a lot of damage when you usually just want to pop this in a team fight, but you absolutely have to delete like a level 18 Vayne or something. You can just flash in with your ulti and it'll do way more damage than if you just ultied them in general. But you can't flash do it, so you have to do it before it comes down. I guess you could try to do this, but if they can just flash out of it, right? In late game, that'll just get you killed. So this is a great way just to surprise them. 1500 damage on a Vayne who's likely already going to be a little bit low HP is just going to nuke her in the late game. So basically, whenever you're up against a ranged opponent, you have a poke disadvantage, which basically means that they're going to be trying to hit you with auto attacks, they're going to hit you with their ranged abilities while you're trying to go for CS. So what you're going to want to bait them to do is to push the wave to you. And the way that you do this is by not hitting the wave early. If you're in a ranged matchup, do not hit the wave, right? Because what this allows your opponent to do if you end up pushing is that they can freeze at their tower, and you're a melee champion who has to walk all the way up in order to get CS. This is also great because if the wave pushes towards you, you soak it up under tower and then you can CS, then the wave will start to bounce back to them. But this will happen around the same time that your jungler is level 3 looking to gank. And there is a great video on Skillcapped about this, talking about Bjergsen's strategy for getting a level 3 gank. I'm going to throw it in the description below if you want to learn more about how to get level 3 ganks and how to set up your lane for it, especially as Diana. But just know that when you're a melee champion, you do not want to be pushing the wave. You want to soak it in, get level 3 so that you can jump in and all in your opponent, especially if you have jungle help. It's just going to allow you to get more kills each game. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, oh, my jungler's never going to come level 3. Well, guess what? If you do this for 100 games, I guarantee that you'll get more ganks and more kills than if you were just to randomly let the wave kind of do whatever it wants. It's not about individual games, it's about being consistent over a long period of games so that the small little changes can rack up into big wins. If you're in a melee matchup, you can take W first and look for trades with your empowered auto attack when your opponent goes up to CS. She just does a lot of burst damage, plus the level 1 shield allows you to soak their damage early, and it's just an easy way to win trades. I would recommend pushing the wave if you're not against a very aggro jungler like Shaco or Lee Sin. It will allow you to get pressure and poke with your Q when your enemy's under tower or when they're CSing, and just allows you to be able to move on the map first, have priority in your lane to help with scuttle crabs. So those are kind of my 2 game plans, but like I said, in every game, every situation, it changes, so be able to adapt and look at the game and make the decisions for yourself. Alright guys, to finish this video, we're going to go through 3 simple tips to carry. The first one is to play your lane right. Guys, you can set up so many wins and so many snowballed games by playing your lane correctly. If you know where the jungler is, you know how to call for a gank because you're great at setting up ganks for your jungler because of your burst potential, your stickiness to your opponent. If you're able to keep the wave on your side of the map and you have an aggro jungler, I highly encourage you to do that. Getting a couple of kills in the laning phase pretty much means GG if you don't throw it. The second tip is that if you do get a lead from this strategy or just randomly get a lead, I recommend that you go to a side lane and push. Split pushing is a highly effective way of getting out of low elo, and Diana is great at it. Her attack speed and her passive do a ton of damage to towers, plus she can almost annihilate anybody on the enemy team if she gets a small lead, so she's great to put in the side lane. And that's also where your teleport comes in handy as well. You can teleport to help your team in a team fight, you can help them fight over an objective, and you can just kind of split the map and increase the pressure, the total pressure that you have on your enemy opponent. This just overall increases the amount of pressure that you have on your enemy, and it's just pretty relentless until you win the game. The third tip I have is to be the engager and the initiator. If you have a Zhonya's Hourglass, it can be highly effective if you can get a 3-man ultimate if you have decent follow-up. If throughout the game you realize that your team just isn't following you, then I probably wouldn't do this. But if overall, like, you feel like your team is following you in fights and you're playing decently well as a team, I would look for those picks before Baron. I would look for those picks before Dragon. I would look to get a 3-man ultimate. I would look to burst a couple people on the enemy team and then have your team follow up and just wipe them. Being aggressive, being an initiator on your team is important on Diana, but just remember, make sure to ping, make sure your team follows, and if they don't, it's still your fault. If you go in 1v5 and die, it's not your team's fault for following, it's your fault for engaging and not communicating with your team. But more times than not, I think it's more advantageous to be aggressive in this situation. All right, guys, that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed the different style of video. This is a lot less scripted. This is a lot more off the head based on my recent experience and recent success on Diana. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please like the video if you did. And as always, this has been Snowda. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.